he would record a lot of prominent people and keep these recordings in a safe. She goes to his house, gets the stuff from the safe, and at that point, she says, if anything happens to her, the book will be released along with the tapes. But what I got for you today, my friend, you're getting a treat here. You're getting a scoop that nobody has gotten. I mentioned this on one reel, and it was my most played reel on my entire Instagram. Over 100 and something thousand plays, which for me is pretty big. Like that's a lot more than normal. I'll kind of precurse this. So I'm not going to give the names of how I come into contact with this book, but anybody that knows anything about the Diddy situation, he had a longtime girlfriend, Kim Porter. Now, he had a few kids with her. They had a long running relationship, and then they did separate. Now, it's been long rumored that she was writing like a diary. I don't necessarily know if I would call it a book, but a diary of events that took place throughout their relationship. And then she mysteriously passed away due to pneumonia. As I was saying, it's been long rumored that she was writing a tell-all book or at least a memoir detailing her tumultuous life with P. Diddy and some of his extracurricular activities. I read it. I was actually out of town, so I took it with me and I'm reading it on the plane. And it's not a lot, which tends to put a little bit of validity towards it. Was like her memoirs. It wasn't actually a full-blown book. This is not a 300-page book by any means. It more or less looked like a diary that was kind of put together in sequential order. And it was about 45 pages long. And I read it and I'm just like, wow. And now I grew up. P. Diddy was hot when I grew up. Like Bad Boy was hot, Tupac. I mean, those two were the top in the game, Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, Tupac. So Puff Daddy was in the limelight everywhere, and he, stayed there for a good deal of time. And then he branched out and done other things with Ciroc and Sean John. So it's not somebody that I was completely, unaware of, but the things that were talked about in that book, I was just like, there's no way he done all this. And we're going to talk about a few things in there because now, like, the more time has went by, I read this book in April. Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see. The Southern District of New York would beg to differ.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That a lot more, that book, that diary that you read is looking more and more credible now.
Yes, it definitely is more and more credible. And this is just one woman's accounts, as we'll go through when we get into the, all the charges against them. There's multiple women, multiple crimes, multiple things that's going on that he's getting charged with. Very serious stuff. And this is just one account, one lady. Now and I'm going to just talk about a few of the things from this book, because there's a lot of stuff in there. Some very prominent people in the music business are named. I'm not going to talk about every single one, but just a few of them. She says when she first meets Diddy that they, of course, began at some point in time to engage in some activity. And which is fine. I mean, by God, go right ahead.
Yeah. He's not shy. That's for sure.
No, because what his idea of a good time is he wants her to use extra large toys and different things on him to the point to where he's, bleeding. It seems a little painful to me. I don't know. I wouldn't consider that what I would, put in the classification as a pleasurable experience, but to him it was. And I think you can get there. I think at a point in time when you have money and stuff like that, I'm not saying I'll ever be there, but I think it's possible. When you have money and you have girls, I think, you probably go to one girl, then two girls, then three girls, then this, then that. I think you eventually have to get to where that really, really, really far out there is what satisfies the regular craving for you. I think that's a thing. My opinion, I could be wrong. It's not my thing, but I think it is a thing for some people. And she said that she was so weirded out by this experience that she didn't want to talk to him anymore. And obviously she knew who he was. It was Diddy. But I mean, she was just like, this is pretty strange. I'm not going, it's too much. And he pursued her for a while but they met up at a club and he was like, I was just kind of a little out there and I'm sorry and I'd really like to give it another chance. And, they get back together. And she alludes in there that he had affairs with people like Mary J. Blige and that she also was having it was a pretty much an open relationship. They were both doing their own thing, which is I think in Hollywood and that industry is probably pretty common.
Right.
Um, One of the bigger ones was, and this is the short that that I discussed on the show, was the Tupac situation. Now, she claims in this book to have been with Tupac solo at another point in time. Now, before all the bad blood between East Coast, West Coast, and before everybody wanted to, take each other out, all these guys are friends. Now, there's some pictures in this book of people hanging out in the same location, Snoop, Diddy, etc. And a lot of these, I mean, there's a famous I forget right off where it's at, but I mean, Pac and Biggie are together rapping at like some concert. It's a famous concert where they get up there and freestyle. So there was a point in time where they all got along. And she
Right.
said they're at Diddy's home and they're all hanging out, chilling, and she's like, she's been with Pac solo. And Diddy kind of brings it up like, hey, we've all been with each other, but we've never been with each other together. I've been with Kim, you've been with Kim, but we've never been with Kim together. And almost kind of lays out a competition as to one goes first and sees how long it takes to get Kim to climax.
Right.
And Pac is, according to her words, and I want to make sure people understand this. I'm reading from this book. I'm not saying this is true. I wasn't there. I wasn't hiding in the closet. Oh, Hollywood wasn't nowhere around there. Okay. I'm going off the book. She says that Pac is immediately like, F that, F this, F that. I'm not feeling that or whatever. And he just like basically cusses Diddy out and leaves. So this sends Diddy into a little bit of a tizzy. He's obviously upset. I don't know whether he's worried that, Pac could spill the beans on what he's into or what. The next day, she says she walks in on a conversation that was had between Pac and a guy by the name of Jimmy Henchman, and that it was an orchestrated setup for Tupac to be shot, which was the shooting that happened at Quad Six Studios the first time Pac got shot a number of times. Now, I know people are going to say it wasn't Jimmy Henchman, it was this person, or it was that person, or it was Haitian Jack, or it was for this reason. I'm not saying this was exactly what happened. Again, I'm just reading from this book. Now, if you watch that Tupac and Biggie, I don't know if I actually ever watched the Tupac movie, but I know there was a show and he is going to the studio in New York, allegedly, big season from the street. They wave him up. As he goes into the lobby, he's basically robbed and shot. Now, in Tupac's mind, he's thinking he was set up to come there. That is really, in a sense, what kind of started this whole beef between Tupac and Biggie, East Coast, West Coast. That event was the catalyst. That was the first domino to fall. Now, Pac obviously didn't die. He got shot and he lived, but after that, things just wasn't the same. Now, to hear this book tell it, that was put into motion by Diddy as a revenge for, I guess, Pac dissing off the situation. It seems a little extreme to go to that, I'll admit. But once it doesn't happen, once he's not killed, he's like, all right, well, now he's going to be pissed. Now he's going to think it's us.
That will upset you.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where he'd be a little,
Some people shrug it off, but some people take it personal.
I mean, I would. It's personal. It's personal. So now Diddy is kind of like, where do we go from here? And so there's a meeting, and he tells and Big allegedly does not want to do this, but he tells Big to go ahead and drop the track "Who Shot You." This is all in her book. I'm not making this up. This isn't Hollywood's, hip hop fables. This is from the book. Okay. You don't want to believe me, go yell at the author. That's all I can say. That he tells him to go ahead and drop "Who Shot You." because it's almost a poke at Tupac. I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it's basically, who shot you kind of says it, but
Yeah, yeah.
allegedly this was written before that happened. But now when he drops it, immediately it kind of just pours gasoline on the situation. And she says, Puffy's like, well, if he didn't die, he's going to fire back at us. We might as well at least profit financially from this. And so that kind of starts that. He drops that. Tupac drops Hit 'Em Up, which was probably one of the greatest diss tracks ever. He talks about being with Faith's wife, or Biggie's wife, Faith Hill, or Faith Evans, excuse me. Definitely not Faith Hill, Faith Evans. And so that's where all those kind of tracks come into play. Now, Biggie Smalls is a whole nother story in this, because Biggie allegedly was going to leave Bad Boy and go out on his own. Now, since I read that book in March, there's been multiple articles that drop here, there on different internet sources that said Biggie was going to go out on his own. There's been sources that said Biggie and Pac were going to both leave. Biggie was going to leave Bad Boy. Pac was going to leave Death Row. They were going to get together and do their own label. That has also been something I've read. That is not in this book, but that's just other things that I've read. Now, Puff says at a party, this is at a party where a lot of prominent, people are supposed to be at, and Kim overhears Puffy say, I'm not going to have his damn back if he's not got my back 100, or something to that effect. And he's like, I can't do it myself, but I'll pull protection if we ever leave New York. Now, if you take that at face value, when they go to California, which is not the place that, your East Coast rappers are very welcomed, it is where Big got shot. Right. And if you look into the details of it, Gene Deal, who's been doing a lot of interviews here lately, he was the bodyguard. He was with Puff. Nobody was with Biggie. Biggie was taken out. He was shot. I mean, Puff's car was not shot at. So you kind of start to see maybe there is some validity to this. But then I would like, okay, well, why would you take out your biggest artist? Well, if he knew that Biggie was going to leave, he wasn't going to be his biggest artist anymore.
Right.
And I'm not 100% sure on what happened with all the royalties and, the masters and all of that stuff. There's a part in that book that says Valletta Wallace, who was Biggie's mom, came to Puff and was basically asking for some of the money that her son had earned and generated through all the music and everything. And he basically told her, kind of like the whole MC Hammer thing, was like, he didn't really make any money. He was in debt. I paid for all the publishing for these records. I paid for this. I paid for that. Really, he owed me money. But if you need a little bit of help, I'll give you some.
Yeah. Out of the goodness of my heart.
Yeah, out of the goodness of my heart, I'll give it to you, because I'll be honest, you haven't heard a ton from Valletta Wallace, good or bad, about the whole situation with Puffy. And let's be honest, did he, I'm sure it was his friend. I'm sure they had, some sort of bond, but he milked, Biggie's death for everything it was worth. And apparently, I'm not sure. I think it is true, because Sting said it on the Breakfast Club. He sampled the Police, I'll Be Missing You, when he sung that song for Biggie. Allegedly, he has to pay Sting, I want to say it's like $1,000 or a couple thousand a day for the rights to that song. That's about to run out here real soon. Sting better be glad he got what he got, because Diddy's about to not be able to pay nothing for a while. So that's another story that's in this book. There's also a story about, you remember when he dated Jennifer Lopez?
Yeah.
According to Kim, this whole entire relationship between them two was basically a farce for the media. They were together. They would make public appearances. They would appear to be a couple, but in actuality, Kim was still living at his house. And there was an instance, I don't know how much you followed rap back in those days, where you were out in those days, weren't you? Were you in jail?
I was out, but I don't.
I'm not sure the time. This would have been maybe mid-90s. There was a rapper that come out named Shine. Remember him?
No. I would have followed it more if they'd played it on WQIK Country.
Okay, I don't know
Then
if that's a lot.
I would have probably heard a lot more of it, but they didn't tend to play those songs in country music.
You're not gonna get a shine on
No.
WIKK Country. There's not. I'm glad there's not another K in there. Otherwise, that's going to be some. There's going to be some sniffing around in that radio station.
QYK, not KK.
YK. Okay. Uh, so Shine come out. I actually love Shine's first rap album. It is up there on like my top 5 of all rap albums, and I love all kinds of music. Shine had a very distinctive voice. He sounded very much like Biggie Smalls. And he was kind of going to be that guy to revive Bad Boy, to put him back in that gangster rap, because you could tell a lot of his stuff that he was rapping about was stuff he really did. I mean, he told a story. If you go back to how people would tell stories when they were rap, he was telling stories. I'm not going to say they were true, but they damn sure sounded true. If they weren't his, they were somebody that he knew.
Right.
Because it was pretty detailed. So his stardom, his ship starting to sail, if you will. And they're all at a nightclub in New York. Jennifer Lopez, Shine, Puff, and there's a shooting that happens. A girl gets shot in the face. I don't think she died. I think she got shot in the face. I don't think anybody died. I don't think. But anyways, they all get in Puffy's SUV and take off. Now, what winds up happening is Shine takes the rap for having the gun and doing the shooting, but everybody immediately says that it was Biggie. Shine gets a pretty substantial prison sentence out of this. I don't know if it was like 10 years or 12 years, but he goes to jail. That's what eventually winds up happening. But before that, like the next day after the shooting, she says, this is Kim talking, J-Lo shows up at the house and is like irate with Puffy, saying that, she's got a career and this is going to cost her career in movies and this, that, and the other. And he tells her to relax, that he's got it all under control. She said, what do you mean you got it under control? And he's like, Shine's going to take the rap for it. He's going to take the bid. Nobody's going to have to do any time. He's going to admit to having the gun. He's going to admit to being the trigger guy. And, we're basically going to skate on this. And she's like, well, what happens if he changes his mind while he's in there? Like if he don't decides, hey, I'm not going to do all this time. He's like, nobody inside will change their mind. There's too many people that can get to them if they decide to change their mind. And I guess to a certain degree, maybe it kind of set her at ease. And according to Kim, before she leaves, he tries to get the 3 of them to get together. And J-Lo's just like, no, there's too much shit going on. I can't do this. So even in the midst of all this, Puffy's still trying to, get J-Lo and Kim into bed. I guess kudos to him. He's not
Priorities.
Yeah. You got priorities. You got priorities.
What shirt do you have on?
This is my Hawk Tua 24. Spit on that.
Oh, that's great.
How about that girl, huh? I don't want to get sidetracked, but Jesus, I'm just so jealous of her.
I know. A random comment, boom, stardom. She's probably
international
multi-millionaire by now, right?
I know the other day I read that she made her first million. She's got her podcast with Jake Paul, and the Better response from it. She's been on all these Matt Rives had her at his concerts or comedy shows.
Yeah,
I mean, she's everywhere, and good for her. I'm not knocking. A lot of people hate on her. I'm not knocking. I would have grabbed that 15 minutes and wrote it for all I could too. So
yeah,
good for her. But yeah, that's my Hawk Tua shirt. So just a little tidbit here on the Shine situation. Shine gets out of jail, and allegedly he cut, I think his second rap album, there's like 2 songs on there. The quality is absolutely horrible. Allegedly he cut them from jail, but now he gets out of jail and is given, I can't remember the number amount on the contract. It was either like 2 million or 8 million, somewhere along in that neighborhood, by a guy named L.A. Reid. L.A. Reid's a big music producer in Hollywood. You probably heard his name mentioned in other documentaries. Now he's given that by L.A. Reid to do like, X amount of albums. That second one came out. He goes to a whole nother country, and that album never comes out. Now, what it said is that was a payoff that L.A. Reid made to Shine to do some albums that he never did. L.A. never tried to follow up on it, get his money back or everything, because more than likely, what happened, and according to this book, Puffy paid L.A. under the table to give that to Shine. That way it's not coming from him as payment for taking the rap for this.
Right. And they have a legitimate reason on why he would pay him. He was supposed to do 2 albums and he fucked me over.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, LA never pushes it. He never goes after it, but correct. They have a legitimate reason why that money came, but and nothing ever came of it. They never got what they were supposed to get. Everybody said that was the payoff. Now, there's another situation, and this was actually picked up by a few media outlets. Radar Online, I think, had it. Angela Yee, who used to be on the Breakfast Club, she had it on her show. It surfaced on a bunch of podcasts probably about a month ago, where he had hit her, I think, with a chair, and she woke up in the hospital. And of course, hit Kim.
Okay.
And she wakes up in the hospital, after being hit with this chair. He was apparently a very violent dude. Like, not only would he beat her physically, and especially if he thought she was talking to other guys, but like it got to a point somewhere along in there where he was very, very violent. But for whatever reason, she kept going back. So it's one of those things where like, you can only get pity for so long because you keep going back to this guy. But she ultimately in the book, she says that she loved him. Now,
he's manipulating her with money and threats and all kinds of stuff. So, or
Yeah,
at least that seems to be his MO, according to the indictment. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you got to figure when you've got that much money, you got to think about this, Matt. We're talking about a guy that a year ago was given the key to the city of New York in the middle of Times Square. They gave Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, the key to the city. And now he's possibly going away for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I don't think the key, it doesn't really open anything, but I hear you.
No, it doesn't open anything, but it's still like, well, they did give Francis the key to the Florida, I think, one time.
The bar is low. Like these criminals, you're giving criminals, like I should get something, passcode, something.
The key to a real estate agency down there.
Something. It's ridiculous.
There's a situation where she winds up being pregnant with twins. Now, there had been Kim.
No, I know Diddy's not pregnant.
Yes,
I'm saying
Diddy.
by Diddy.
Yes, by Diddy.
It was kind of an open relationship.
It was in the beginning. It kind of solidified back to a regular relationship, but they would often have like other parties come in involved. She would say that he would have multiple people come in and be with her so he could watch. And these are the parts when I'm hearing about this, I'm like, I don't know if this is, 100% accurate. It sounds like it's kind of stretched, but then now with all these indictments, it sounds right in line.
Yeah.
And you got to remember again, I'm reading this back in March or April. So she finds out she's pregnant and she goes to him and she tells him. And because they have been doing all this wild, crazy shit, she thinks that he's going to be upset. And she said, he's like smiling and he's like kind of happy. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to be a dad. This is great, because she had a kid when they first got together, but it was from another guy named Al B. Sure, who was another singer. So Diddy was excited. And she said, I was so relieved that he wasn't mad. And she was like, but we're going to have to go, one more time now before you can't do this anymore. And she's like, what do you mean? And what he meant was they're going to have to do another, basically, I don't know if I would classify this as a party, but he wanted multiple people, multiple guys to be with her. And we're talking like Vince McMahon-esque type situations, like hurtful stuff,
right.
Stuff that I don't even want to say because I don't want to get this video demonetized.
Right.
But I mean, just some really bad shit. And she, was somewhat, I would say, forced, or, at that point she's got his kids. What can she do? Now, after she has the kids, the relationship doesn't get any better. There's still a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot more stuff in the book, so I can't remember all of it. But the key here is when she finally decides to get away. Now, she said that he would record a lot of prominent people and keep these recordings in a safe in his
Right.
house. Now, she goes to his house, which I'm sure she had access to. She gets the safe, gets the stuff from the safe, all these videos, and she basically uses that as the exit strategy. And at that point, she says that she's going to write this book, and if anything happens to her, the book will be released along with the tapes. Now, these tapes are alleged to have singers Usher, Justin Bieber. There's a lot of prominent celebrities. Now, these are all guys that have been in the media about being with him. There's videos of him with Bieber saying that Bieber hung out at his house for like 2 or 3 days back when Bieber was really young.
So
There's
sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in acts with commercial workers. And then later it says in the indictment that that he would use them to intimidate and coerce these various people. So yeah, bro, this is why you should have done a video like this 3 months ago or 2 months ago.
Well, like I didn't at that point, I was just like, I didn't want to come out and be like the delivery guy of a bunch of misinformation and this, that, and the other. I was you got to understand, this is a guy that I would have not thought was responsible. I don't think a lot of people thought he was responsible for all this.
I interview guys that do that all the time.
Yeah, but I don't want to be that guy.
I mean, listen, there's a good 15% of these guys that are talking to me on my program, and I'm thinking, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Doesn't that I don't think that happened. That doesn't feel right. But hey, whatever. Anyway, the book it's out, right?
Yes, the book is out right now. It's on Amazon.
Right. And it's been out for how long?
It actually got, I think, dropped on Amazon about 2 weeks ago, but it's been around since April.
Okay, so it's been around, whatever, but it's been published. 2 weeks ago, and the indictment just came out.
Yes, it's been out. It's been published, I think, on Amazon. It got posted to Amazon roughly 2 weeks ago, and the indictment, yeah, just dropped today. And like I said, I talked about. I do what?
Do you have a copy of it?
Not since it actually got published by Amazon, because everything's changed. It was basically just like it looked like a movie script when I got it.
Okay.
Now it's got like a cover, and it's actually, I don't know if you can see this, but
that's not a bad cover. It's not horrible.
It's Kim's Lost Words. Looks a little blurry on the phone, obviously, but the book didn't even have a cover when I read it, which is another reason why I was a little skeptical about all this. But it did have some pictures mixed in there with it, and again, like I said, this just come out a couple weeks ago. The indictment just happened, but I read all this, months and months ago, and then little bit by little bit, all these things were coming out. There's clips of him, if you search Diddy and Bieber, where he's talking about he had Bieber at his house and they were partying and hanging out together. And then if you watch, there's a clip with Usher where he's with Howard Stern and he's talking about the Diddy parties. I think they called it something, but it was the Diddy parties that he would go to. And he's basically saying that a lot of shit went on that shouldn't have went on. And Howard even asked, he's like, if you had a son, would you let him go to a Diddy party? And he's like, absolutely not. So she gets her hands on these tapes, and that's basically like her security, that, all right, if something happens to me, this is going to go.
Right.
Now, they do separate. She gets sick and ultimately passes away of pneumonia. He's not questioned or anything in this, they ruled it pneumonia. So I don't want to, drum up a conspiracy with that, but they didn't question him in anything like that. It wasn't ever really looked into. Did he do this? Even though there's been quite a few people in the music industry involved with Diddy that's died of pneumonia. I mean, not saying that's a coincidence, but I'm saying it looks like a coincidence. So she's got this. She passes away of pneumonia. Now her house is robbed.
Right.
And basically what they're saying that what happened here is, or the consensus is, that Diddy knew she had this. So he went and tried to retrieve all these hard drives. And the word is that he did. Now, obviously, this isn't what's in the book. This is what I was told by this individual of how he became in possession of it. Was Diddy got the hard drive? Diddy got all the evidence back from her? Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Now, at some point, and this is again, this is alleged, this is coming second, third hand information. Cassie got it from him, and Cassie gave it to someone who he knew. And that's how he come in contact with it. Cassie is the girl, obviously, that was shown in the video of him really, really brutalizing in the hallway and next to the elevator. That's the video that released probably 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know if you remember that one or not. It was pretty graphic what he did.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
chasing her down the hall, beating her, kicking her, and all that. Allegedly, she got it from him, and whoever she gave it to knew the person that I was speaking with, and that's how they actually got it. They're obviously worried about repercussions from releasing this, but they wanted the truth to come out, and so that's kind of where we are now. You notice the name on that book of the
Yeah.
author.
Yeah. Well, it's not the author. She's it's yeah. Well, yeah. By Millwood or whatever. Jamal Millwood, T. Millwood,
Now you
for
want
Kimberly Porter.
right now you want to know what you get when you Google Jamal Millwood.
Mm-mm.
This just
Right.
kind of goes further down this rabbit hole. This was an alias of what allegedly Tupac Shakur used after he faked his death.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know whether this is just like a little inside thing or what with this. But yeah, there's a lot more stories in there, man. There's stuff with Jay-Z. And I think I might have skipped over that part that allegedly Jay-Z was the one that told Biggie or told Puff that Biggie was planning on leaving, which is what kind of set that in motion that he was going to pull protection and he wasn't going to back someone that wasn't backing him. The the kind of the story behind that is if Jay-Z wanted that spot of New York for him, and if Biggie was around, he was going to be second. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's in the book written by Kim that meeting happened. All this stuff up until obviously when she died is accounts that she had with him. There's like I said, there's a lot of other stuff in there. We'll put the link up obviously in the description if you guys want to go check it out. I'm telling you, just to read this, it was really at that time, like I said, it kind of took me a little bit by surprise. But now with all these indictments, and we can get into these indictments, it seems like this book was spot on because we're not just talking about a few minor instances here. He's got racketeering charges, which carries a life sentence. A lot of the mob guys that I've interviewed had racketeering charges. He's got kidnapping charges that are a minimum of like 10, and these trafficking charges can go up to life at the minimum of 15. And that's just a few.
Yeah.
And have you seen, from what I've seen, they have not given him bond, I don't think.
No, I couldn't imagine that. Well, I was gonna say I can't imagine they will, but the truth is, they might give it to him. He puts up enough property. He's well known enough. It's kind of like the whole Sam Bankman-Fried
Mhm.
thing. It's like, okay, you can say, well, he shouldn't get bond. He could flee the country. Well, where's he gonna go? There's very few places this guy can go. He's got enough property and stuff to put up as collateral, and he's too recognizable to disappear.
No, I agree. And I guess I never had this, obviously, I never had this kind of a, situation to deal with, but it looks like kind of a proposal of his defense team. And it's like a $50 million bond. He's going to put up his home in Miami. That's equated to 50 mil or 49 million. Obviously, he can put up other assets of his businesses. Part of the deal was he would be, uh, I guess, confined to his home in Florida and his home in New York and New Jersey.
Put an ankle monitor on.
Put ankle monitor on. He suspended his passport, so obviously he can't leave the country, and also his family, his kids, and his family surrendered their passports as well. But last I seen, I don't know if 100% if I can say it's denied, but he hasn't gotten it yet. And I don't really imagine with these charges that he's going to get it because that's not it. It's not just those three. And you got the indictment there, but they got on there coercing, enticing to engage in narcotics, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice. Like they got a lot of stuff on him.
No, he's carrying weapons. He's known to carry weapons. His staff
We
carries
talked about
weapons.
that, the New York incident, what we talked about.
Yeah, they'll threaten you with the weapons. They're threatening you with your career, with violence, with everything across the board. So it reads very much like an organized crime, like a continuing criminal enterprise that he's involved in. And he's got a whole group of people that are protecting him and that are basically on staff to clean up after him, to make sure that it doesn't get out in the public, to intimidate people. And of course, you're moving people you're flying people in from various states for acts like that's trafficking. It's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. Whether these are and they're willing to do it or not, it's illegal to fly them in. So it's all federal jurisdiction. He's got some problems. The real problem is they don't have to chart. They don't have to prove a whole bunch of this. It's not like that to prove every single element.
Yeah.
So, and God knows how many people are ready to get on the stand and start talking, especially once he's in custody. Once he's in custody, he's been indicted, more people will jump out because a lot of people are like, I don't want to come in and talk because my fear is I'll talk, it'll become known that I talk, and you'll never indict this guy, and it'll be out there that I was cooperating, and that's bad for me.
Yeah.
But once you grab the guy and throw him in jail and start arresting people, and they realize, oh, this is serious, okay, I'll talk to you.
And that's why you see when you see cases like, Epstein or Weinstein or whatever, once that first domino falls, all the other ones start to come behind it.
Yeah.
And, people will say, well, why didn't you say umpteen? It could be a lot of reasons why these girls didn't talk. In Weinstein's case, if these girls talked, they were, basically threatened with abolishment of the industry. That's how they make their living, so you can say, oh, I wouldn't do that. You don't know what you would do. If that's how you make a living and it's say, hey, you do this or you'll never work in this town again, you know, who knows? And apparently a lot of people had to endure that. And that's why Bill Cosby, more people started coming out. And I think, like you said, it gives a sense of security when they're behind bars. And then the dominoes really starts to fall. And it sounds a lot to me, Matt, like he's running this like a mob style family. Like he's running off threats, intimidation. He's got the money to buy whoever, he needs, probably definitely local cops, own up to detectives. Probably he could probably put on the payroll if he wanted to. Let's not sit here and act like New York is the most clean, city with a great criminal record that nobody's ever took a bribe or, a conspiracy in that town. And I think that's really what it is he's running this thing like a mob family. And there's connections that his dad, I think, was tied into Frank Lucas, who was a heavy drug dealer. He was portrayed in the movie American Gangster when Denzel Washington played him. And I think there's an interview where he talks about Frank is talking to Puffy and he's saying that he knew his dad. So, Puffy's dad was kind of in this life to a certain degree too, the gangster life. So it's like he made his money in music, but he still wanted to be a gangster. But yet he had this really undying fetish for basically hours and hours and hours and hours of activity. And the guy's got to be up there.
Well, if the chick was 47 when she died, this is the chick you're banging, and she died.
He's got to be 50 something, I would imagine. The narcotics trafficking, we're going to read some of the narcotics here, and you may have them on your list, but, this was, blow, oxycodone, Xanax, GHB, which is also the date rape drug. And this is the kicker here. I don't think this come out back when they raided his house, because this is when this was found. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube, 3 AK-47s with drum magazines. I hope that wasn't all in the same room. Otherwise, I got some serious questions. What are you doing with 1,000 bottles of baby oil?
I mean, a lot of slipping and sliding, I mean, you take 5 or 6 bottles and you duct tape a couple of shower curtains together. You lay them out on the floor, and it's just like a big slip and slide. Like it's just all over the place.
I heard a guy tell me a long time ago. This is actually when you could still find these things. Do you remember waterbeds?
Yeah, of
He
course.
he said that that was the funnest experience he'd ever had. Was he had this chick and they ripped off all the sheets. It was just that little plastic thing that held the water, and they just doused it with baby oil and everything, and just had a good time.
Never had a good time on a waterbed. The rhythm of the water throws me off,
Yeah.
you know, and you do that, I feel like you're slipping and sliding, you're somebody's, somebody's shooting off the bed and, flying, hitting the wall, and I just feel like I just know it'd be a catastrophe for me, you know? It's like having
Maybe that's
sex
the idea.
it's like having sex in the shower. It sounds good.
Yeah, that's not all
Sounds
that.
it's not.
Yeah, you got to get foot placement down. You don't want to fall.
No. Threesomes, bumpy, awkward. Somebody's left out.
Is this
It's not
yours?
as
I'm sorry.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Your turn.
It sounds really cool and they make it look cool in the movies, but no. Maybe there's a class or something. I'm probably doing it wrong. But anyway, yeah.
I'm sure there's a class. You could probably listen to it on Crime and Entertainment. I'm sure there's some good
Did he?
stories on there.
Did he take a class?
Oh yeah, he took. I think he taught him.
He can
And,
teach class. He'll be teaching ACE courses on this in prison.
yeah, they call these parties the freak off parties.
Did you
And
hear did you hear the press conference when the US attorney had to say freak off over and over again? Like it's so hard for him to he's trying to make it sound really they called these parties freak off. It's like I wouldn't have even touched on that if I was you. I would have left that part out. There's some things I just wouldn't have broached. Some subjects I'd be like, look, I can't pull this off. I can't do it.
and that's where I guess you would say he's flying in male performers to be with the regular girls. Like I don't even think it's enough for him to be involved. He wants to see it, and then him be involved. And then they said after all this is over, that they would get IVs, to because they had engaged in this for so long. I guess the GHB was used to keep them in sort of a comatose state that they were okay with it. They would have to go get IVs to give them energy back.
Well, so these are like male we're talking about, right?
I'm assuming it said male performers, so like
I mean,
that's what I'm
how do you
guessing.
get how do you get that gig?
Yeah, I mean, you're
That's
gonna
not
get Puff Daddy's gonna pay to fly me down and just run through a bunch of girls all night long.
I mean, listen, when I was in the halfway house and was on one of those I was on one of those websites looking to
That
apply for
wasn't on there.
jobs. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I'm so pissed at Darlington High, my alma mater. That was not on the field day list or the career day list. I didn't see Puff Daddy's male on there, or I would have, say he was popular back then. Now,
Commercial performers. What does that even mean? Like
I
that is
would
the most
think they're male stars is the only thing I can think of.
what you're thinking? Okay,
It's
okay,
got to
okay.
be, or either just. I mean, I'm sure they have like I don't know what you call them nowadays, male escorts or whatever, but
I
like
don't wanna see all that. I
no,
don't wanna see all that.
I don't either. I
First of all,
guess
I don't
maybe
wanna follow that. I don't wanna follow that. Listen, I've seen some. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've seen some of these things. I don't wanna follow that up. Like, I see something like that, I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't wanna know. I don't wanna." And now what? Now Kim's coming. Now, Kim, come on, let's go to bed. It's 9:45. I wanna go to bed.
What are you gonna
Like,
do with that?
I
Just had a
yeah,
gas pump inside of her.
yeah. Can't follow that up.
Woo! Oh boy. Uh, and right here before this indictment come down, I'd say about a month, a couple weeks, he got $100 million lawsuit on him, like a lawsuit. I remember that. I actually was reading about that right before we hopped on air. I remember seeing it come out, and it's like these dominoes were already starting to fall. I don't know how this dude wasn't panicked because apparently he was just chilling in Central Park before all
He
this
knew it
took
was coming
place.
down. He knew it was coming down. I mean, he's probably just like, "Look, this is coming down." He's been holding this thing together for the longest. He's stressed out of his mind. He's probably got on all kinds of, on all kinds of Xanax and whatever, and he's just waiting for the ship to go down. He's been preparing. He knows he can't go anywhere. He knows I can't run. I can't do anything. Like there's nowhere I'm going to go to get away from this, and he's hoping he's duct taped it together enough that maybe they won't get an indictment, or maybe I'll beat the charges, or because let's face it, he had people standing by. He had a crew
Yeah.
of lawyers standing by waiting for this to come down.
Yeah, he had to know. I think everybody knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time. And that's what makes me think that they're really, really going to try to nail him to the wall on this, because this was really back in March when all this happened, or somewhere around there. They built this case this entire time. And he had to know what they found in a lot of these things. And especially if he found, video footage of these parties. And I think that's why they said that so many people were scared to go up against Diddy, is because he might have had dirt on him. So who's going to speak out against him? It's
Mhm.
like when you go to this, you basically sell your soul. There is a video that's leaked online. This is nowhere mentioned in the book, because obviously I think by the time he got on the scene, Kim had passed away. But there's another rapper named Meek Mill,
Mhm.
and allegedly there's some activity going on, some Shannon Sharpness going on in this. And it definitely sounds like Puffy. It definitely sounds like him in there. Meek, that's kind of up for debate, but it's they've got something going there in that video. It's rather short, but it sounds pretty close. Did you see what happened with Shannon Sharp last week?
No. What
Do you know
happened?
who Shannon Sharp is?
No, I don't know these people. What?
So Shannon Sharp was a former NFL player, and he's got his own podcast called Club Shay Shay. That's the one where Cat Williams kind of let out a lot of stuff about all the big celebrities,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
Okay. I know who you're
that's
talking about.
Shannon Sharp. So he's with a lady friend, and he said he's never been on Instagram Live before in his life. So he goes with his lady friend back to this room. Somehow or another, inadvertently, accidentally, his phone goes on Instagram Live. And he proceeds to, as he called it, starts clapping cheeks. And this is going live, like you can hear everything. You can't see it because it's like it's showing the ceiling, or maybe laying on some covers or something like that. But you can hear a good play by play, going on. And he's like, we finished. His explanation of it was hilarious. And he's like, we finished. And he's like, I got another phone that only a couple people know. And he's like, the phone is going crazy. People's calling me on FaceTime. He's like, some people ain't never called me on FaceTime. And they say, oh, you got to cut your phone off. Man, what are you talking about? He said, then his agent, longest time agent or manager, called was like, man, you on Instagram Live on your phone. You need to cut it off. He said, what you mean I'm on Instagram Live? He said, your phone's on Instagram Live. He said, well, what are you hearing? He said, well, it sounds like you having sex. And he's like,
Mm.
and so the manager put up something like, this account was hacked. Don't know what happened. We're looking into it. He comes out the next day and is like, look, I don't know how it happened, but it happened. It was me. And he's like, look, I told you I get it in. I mean, he's trying to play it off, but I mean, it's I have to find you that link and send it to you. It's funny, but I mean, he got roasted for it. But again, that's consensual. That's two people doing something of their own free will. Nobody was being beaten with a chair. Shannon didn't have four offensive linemen ready to go in after him and
Mhm.
tear this girl apart. What Diddy is doing here is way, way, way past, I think, consensual to anything that anybody had going on. And now you're seeing more and more women come up and speak out. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. And when people start, getting a hold of this book and seeing everything that Kim went through, if he can do that to the kids of his, the mother of his kids, and there's nobody that's safe. There's nobody that's safe. Maybe now, but
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Um,
I don't know what kind of freaknik you can pull off in whatever that jail is. He's in Brooklyn? Where's he at?
I mean, I don't know. He's got to be what he's in. I don't know, New York or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Get Gene Barillo on the phone and tell me where he's at.
um, well,
MC Brooklyn. I keep heard him talk about that.
so here's the thing. Does he end up going to trial, or does he take a plea? You know what the problem with someone like this guy is? In his mind, he thinks if I pay my lawyers enough, I can beat this at trial. And you just can't beat the feds at trial if you're guilty. And it
Yep.
sounds like he's extremely guilty. So the problem is that the lawyers are thinking we can fucking make a fortune taking this to trial and we'll lose. Maybe we win. Maybe by some miracle we end up getting a mistrial or we win, but we will fucking make bank if we take this to trial.
Then they're going to do a podcast, and then they're going to write a book, and then
What
they're going to do everything that the OJ lawyers did after that.
Well, what'll happen is they'll just gut him for as much money as they possibly can.
Oh,
They'll
yeah.
gut the hell out of him. They'll drag the trial out. They'll make whatever, $50 million or however much he blows on his trial. He gets found guilty, and then he'll get 30 years, maybe longer. Now, now they'll probably offer him some kind of a plea like, hey, take 20 years. Take 20 years but in his mind, he's thinking, nah, it's better to just go to trial. I can beat it at trial. But the truth is, you can't beat it at trial. And your lawyers will probably, his lawyers, if they're good lawyers, they'll tell him take 20. If they're bad lawyers, or just basically if they're just lawyers, they're going to convince him to go to trial because they know how much money they're going to make at trial.
Yeah.
So if he's smart, he's got decent lawyers, they'll tell him take the 20. And we'll try and get you some kind of a reduced sentence, or we'll try and get some kind of mitigating factor. They'll try and convince him they can try and get him less than 20, but he needs to take 20 and won't be that bad. And with credits and with good time and halfway house, and it won't be that horrible, and it will be. But especially for him, he's going to fall. He has fallen so far. Right now, he's being treated in prison in a way that he's never been treated in his life.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's bad. He's never had a door shut where there's nothing, there's no cable, the mattress sucks. It's noisy. People are screaming. You can't get up and get a snack. It's cold as fuck all. They put you in a jumper that's been worn by 800 other people. I mean, it's disgusting. It's going to be bad. He's right now, he's in the depths of a depression that he's never known. And he's coming off of all the drugs that he typically has in his system to cope with anxiety and everything else that he's going through. He's going to have a bad time. The next few days are going to be rough. What happens is, if it's probably better for him if they keep him there. Then by the time he's like talking about pleas and going to trial and going back and forth with the U.S. attorney, if he's been there for a few months, his expectations of life have dropped dramatically. And he might start thinking, you know what? Okay, so I take 20, I'll end up doing 10 or 12. I can probably do that. It'll suck, but I can do that. I'll still have a bunch of money when I get out. And he won't be living like a normal inmate. I'll go to a low security prison. In a few years, they'll send me to a camp. I'll be able to get a cell phone, play video games. I'll arrange it so that chicks can come in and I can bang them. It won't be that horrible of a situation in a few years because he can go to a camp. It still sucks, but it's not like Shawshank Redemption. And sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, you almost made that sound a little appealing to some people, the way you just run on that. He'll get good food. He'll have women come in. He's got a cell phone, play video games.
Yeah, you can basically stay drunk most of the time. You can work out. You can do basically you get a regular job. And like I said, right now that seems like hell, but his expectations of life, what he expects out of life, is pretty high right now. As it drops to the point where, reading a good book and drinking a beer and texting somebody on the phone is like an amazing and super entertaining, and be able to watch YouTube. Like by the time he gets into a camp and he can get a cell phone, get an iPhone and watch YouTube, watch movies, play video games. Like it's really just like a really shitty summer camp with shitty guards. But let's face it, he can also put money on everybody's books. He'll be able to, there will be guards that he'll take care of.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Like it's not like 12 years, doing 10 or 12 years and almost most of it in a camp is honestly not really bad. With money.
Are you able to, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of what I was going to get to. Are you saying it's not that bad because he has the money?
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you didn't have the money, it would be much worse.
Well, it would be worse, but it's still not that bad because then what happens is you have the guys that basically just cater to the guys with the money.
So do you think he would get, even with these trafficking and, all these other crimes that he's accused of, racketeering? I mean, that's some serious crimes that, do you think he could still swing a plea deal to get him in that sort of a prison?
I think that the U.S. attorney would give him well, first of all, the plea deal has nothing to do with what kind of prison. It's the time and what the charges are. So he'll get 20, but he'll start getting the what do they call it, the first chance at the FS whatever they call it, these credits that you can get. He'll start
First
getting
chance
credit. So
offenders, whatever. Yeah.
right. So well, the what?
The first chance. I
Yeah,
forgot.
first
I've
chance
heard you
act.
say that. Yeah.
Right. So first he gets 20, immediately 3 years come off. So he's down to 17 years, right? Then he'll start earning credits right away. So after let's say 3 or
Why?
4 3 or
Why?
4 years, huh?
Why do you start earning credits right away?
Because he'll work, you get credits for working, you get credits for taking classes. So after a few years of taking those classes, and by the time he goes to a prison, he'll already probably have a year in.
Yeah.
He won't get sentenced for over a year, let's say.
Mhm.
So you've got a year off. So you're already at 16 years for let's say for 3 years, he's working and he's taking, so he's working and he's taking classes. He gets his time knocked off. He gets credits for that. So very quickly he'll get down to around 10 years and they'll get him sent to a camp.
Okay.
But even the low is very much, it's similar to a camp. So he'll go to a camp, and even in the low, he can get a cell phone. Like he'll have a cell phone. But in a camp, you don't ever have to go to the chow hall. You can have people bringing in your meals. You can have a cell phone. You can play video games. You can watch movies. Like, I mean, that's basically from the institution. Let's say if you don't have a cell phone, you can still watch. You can buy movies. You can buy music. He can listen to his music on an MP3 player. He can watch movies on. They sell the little iPads where you can watch movies, you can play video games. He'll be able to do all those kinds of things in the camp very quickly. So he's got a shitty 4 years ahead of him, and then he'll still have a kind of a shitty. The rest of the time still will be shitty. Let's say he'll probably be able to get out in 12 years. He could probably do 12 years on 20. That's roughly.
Hmm.
And
That'll be
that's not bad
interesting.
for this guy. And I think he can get to a camp. I'm sorry, one more thing. The other question was he can get to a camp because although there's charges, it's not CP.
Yeah.
They're it's trafficking. So
Mhm.
it's not like he forced, like it was necessary. He's not being charged with like rape. And he's
Right.
not being charged with, with certain things that will keep you from that. And he may even get that stuff dropped. Let's say he gets that stuff dropped and he just goes with
That's what
racketeering.
I'm thinking. A lot of these charges will probably get dropped. They'll stick one, and
Right.
that'll be the one that kinda gets him the bulk of his time. The thing that I'm curious of, and I don't know if he will, but, like, you gotta know that Diddy knows and probably has names of a lot of people, influential in high places, that are probably not sleeping very well right now. Because if he decides to start talking, I don't know what
Yeah,
they may cut him, but
but what are these people? So think about it. If you're a US prosecutor, because I hear this a lot, like Sam Bankman Fried, right? So you take him, they were like, oh, he's paid off. I mean, this guy has literally given millions of dollars to politicians, directly to politicians. Nobody came out to help him. Nobody's writing him letters. Nobody's in the courtroom. Nobody's making calls in the back room. This guy goes to trial. He fucking loses. So what I'm saying is with Diddy, who does he really know? These are all actors. These are
well, right, that's
actors,
what I'm
directors.
saying. I don't think they'll be coming to help him. I'm thinking that they might be worried that he would name them as complicit in what they were doing.
Oh, you're saying like cooperate and say, hey,
Yeah.
guess what? What's the guy's name? What was the guy's name? He was a big time actor, black actor.
Will Smith?
No, Will Smith,
Cuba Gooding
Cubic
Jr.?
Jr. What's his full name?
Cuba Gooding Jr., he was in Boys in the Hood, Jerry
Cuba,
Maguire.
Cuba Gooding Jr. Yeah, he was great and he was actually great in both of those.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, uh, um, but let's say he knows stuff about this guy and he's like, hey, I know stuff about this. I got this guy on video. I got this. Like those are mitigating factors. And maybe that's even a sentence reduction. Maybe it's a 5K1.
Mhm.
So that's possible. But this guy's so high profile. Maybe he gets 20 years and then they knock 5 off in 6 months from now, if he can give up enough people and if he has enough evidence.
Because like even some of the names that were named of people that he had dirt on was like TD Jakes, who's a big
Right.
prominent like preacher, in the black community. Um, there's a bunch of names, man. Like I said, you got Bieber, um, Usher, like and Will Smith was named to be at some of these parties, these wild parties that would go on in his house along with his wife. So I mean, like you gotta think that if there's one guy that knows a lot of the upper echelon of Hollywood and that scene's dirty secrets, it's definitely him because it sounds like they went to him to fulfill a lot of these things.
You know, what I was going to say about the sentence reduction. A lot of times, a U.S. attorney will take that into consideration, and they'll give you more time. Like we're going to give you 30 years, but don't worry, we'll knock 10 years off if you cooperate. But the truth is, if you had no option to cooperate, they were going to give you 20 anyway.
Yeah, they were going to give it to you anyway.
So it's still really, that's where like a good lawyer comes in. And then if they're even interested, you have someone like, let's say El Chapo, not that this guy's on that level, but you go to El Chapo and he says, I can give you this person, this person. Sometimes you're so high profile,
Yeah,
they're just like, I'm sorry, bro. Like I don't care who you give us.
yeah. John Gotti couldn't have given them anybody that would have made them not want to say, "Hey, look, we got our guy. We got
Yeah,
John Gotti."
yeah, you're dying in prison.
Yeah,
I don't care what you do, who you give us, you're dying in prison.
yeah.
Period. Madoff. Bernie Madoff, you're dying in prison. Period. That's it. I don't. No, no, no. But I can give you the head of this hedge fund and this hedge fund and this. I don't give a shit. So yeah. So this guy's got some problems. He's. I'm curious to know if they'll let him out. If they do let him out, I'd be curious to know if he didn't, what's the term, unalive himself.
Unalive himself. Yeah, because I mean, you got to look at when everything come out with Epstein and all these prominent celebrities were going to this island and on this manifest, which for some reason still hasn't really surfaced as the way it should. Then that allegedly happens to him. So when you're dealing with the upper echelon of society and a lot of these important people that like to uphold somewhat of a good upstanding image, that can be rather dangerous. Now, I do think Diddy can probably isolate himself a little better than Epstein could. I think he's got more guys that are capable of handling such situations. But once you get behind bars, that is a little bit more difficult to obtain. You're a little bit more limited. Not that there aren't bad guys that would protect him in prison, but you're still a little bit more limited behind bars of what you can do as far as protection if the right people have it out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So it'll be interesting how this plays out because, like, I remember I told you about this book a while back, but I was just reluctant to bring it out. I didn't want to be that guy that brought up a bunch of stuff. Oh,
Boy,
that never happened.
you slipped up, bro.
Yeah, I dropped
You
the
should have
ball.
you should have done this thing months ago or a couple weeks or even a week or two ago. Your caution.
Now I
Mom,
could be sitting here going, I told you 6
yeah,
months ago all
yeah.
this was going on. You didn't want to believe me. I told you
Mhm.
it was coming. But I mean, I encourage everybody go check out the book. I mean, it's
Kim's Lost
highly
Words.
entertaining. Kim's
Kim's
Lost Words. You're
Who
gonna
came
pull.
up with that title?
I don't know. You got to ask Jamal Millwood.
Kim's Lost Words.
Wouldn't have been my title, but I mean,
No. It's just shy of 60 pages. I looked it up.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I would repack. I need to talk to Jamal because we need to I need to we need to talk about repackaging this thing because the packaging is not great. But it would be interesting to read. Well, I mean, there's no blurb on the back jacket cover. The photos very very dark.
Well,
I
that's
don't.
what I'm saying. I don't think this was intended to necessarily be a full blown book. As the way it's written and the way it reads is definitely more of a diary concept that has kind of been compiled structurally into a timeline. if you will. So
Yeah,
that's
well,
why it's only, X amount of pages. But, even the stories that I've told you here, there's those in there. There's a few more. I can't remember them all because it's been quite a few months, but I did know that it did get released the other week. And then when this come out, I called you today and I'm like, bro, we might as well just go ahead and talk about it. Cause still you haven't really heard a lot of people talk about this book other than a few weeks ago when that article started circulating about her getting hit and then waking up in the hospital. That's when
well,
it finally started to circulate.
what's interesting is that it it hasn't been published a long, long time ago. Like it's like you said, it's been floating out there for all this time, and nobody's ever taken it and said, "Hey, let's put this thing on
Well,
Amazon."
I think what you just said probably could have lent itself to the reason of, he's not, he's kind of walking around, he's free, he sees this book, there's no telling what he might could do or try to figure out who's behind it. So maybe they waited. Maybe they knew the indictments were coming down. Maybe it's somebody that's tied into the inner circle. I mean, I think definitely
He
now
was
is the
rated. He
huh?
was rated like he was rated months ago.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I can see where they'd be a little cautious. I mean, this man is alleged to have taken out a lot of people, not just with it's not just stopped with that. Like I think when they talk about the arson, it was alleged that he blew up somebody's car. I can't remember that guy's name right off the top of my head, but it was alleged that he blew up somebody's car. This was a rival in the music business that I think owned some rights or something or some stake of the company that he had. So it's not just focused on the trafficking and all the weird kinky stuff that was going on. There's a lot of stuff here that he was running his stuff kind of like a gang, or a
Right.
mob family, so to speak. So I can see where if he's blowing up guys' cars, people might be real reluctant to put out things. And that's largely probably why you've never heard too many people come out and spoke bad, because until that house got raided, you never really heard a whole lot, maybe rumble here and there, but not nothing nowhere near like what you're hearing now. How long do you think it takes for him to get a sentence if he gets sentenced? I'm assuming your bet he is.
A year.
A year?
Well, yeah, well, now wait a second. If he takes a plea, I'd say he's a year away from being sentenced. Now, if he gets out on bond, much, much longer
Mhm.
because he'll want to drag it out.
Right. And
And
that's something I think a lot of people just say in case. My lawyer even told me that. He's like, if you're good, the longer you drag this thing out, the better.
yeah. And if he goes to trial, what, year, 2 years, about 2 years before he's sentenced. They got to prepare for trial. They're going to need a ton. They're going to have to get their shit together. They're going to have to prepare. Diddy's people are going to keep trying to push it off, push it off. They've got witnesses to interview, and yeah, it could be he probably won't be found guilty and sentenced for 2 years.
And then what you talked about of the unaliving himself, I think is a strong possibility, because you look at guys of that stature, they don't fare too well in prison. Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, I remember one time he had to do like X amount of days, and like they wrote this big thing to the warden saying that he had to be let out because it was detrimental to his health and his digestive system and all this other shit. Like some guys just aren't cut out for prison, and I don't think he's one.
Yeah, because wardens are are so soft hearted.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it worked. He got out. Like he didn't even have to do the full time. And this is because he
Are you
beat a woman. Yeah.
Oh,
He
I
didn't
didn't even know that.
And as all of his time, if I'm not mistaken, was in like solitary, which that's probably a good thing because that he wouldn't have, he might be a boxer, but behind them walls is just a whole nother story. Um, and who knows? He might have been treated great. I don't know. Mike Tyson, from what I understand, had a very good time in prison.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, yeah. Tyson's, I'm sure, a legend in there. I was a legend out here. He's a legend in there, and he's also, well behaved, and he did well in a very structured environment.
Mhm.
And he'll tell you like it was the most calm and serene and peaceful he's ever been in his entire life. Some people
He
thrive
didn't
in.
have nobody try to like dick him out of money or nothing like that. It was like, yeah, I've heard that. And I can see that, like coming from what he came from. Floyd, there was a reason why he wanted to do all of it in solitary though. There had to be a reason, which he wasn't doing no long stretch either. I think he only had to do like 30 days, and he wound up doing like 15 or 17 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, keep in mind too, Diddy, by the time he gets there, he'll have money on 20 guys' books. Like he'll be treated like a king, right? Like let's say he's in the county, yes, he's in the U.S. Marshals holdover from here on out, and then a year from now he gets sentenced and he gets 20 years, and they send him to some sweet low security prison. By the time he actually gets off the bus, there's going to be 10 guys that already have money on their books waiting for him. He'll have shower slides. He'll have a full locker of commissary. He'll have a lock. He'll have whatever he wants. New towels, new this, new that. He'll get the best of everything because he'll just drench these guys. He'll saturate that compound in money. And within a few days, he'll have a phone. I mean, it'll be.
And that's legal to do that if you got it. That's okay.
Is it legal? Like, no, one inmate's not supposed to place money on another inmate's books, but that it happens all. I've had guys put money on my books because you can only spend let's like $350 to $400 in commissary, right? So every month I can only spend $400, let's say, on commissary. Well, what happens if you buy a lot of commissary? Like you're basically eating out of commissary. You're barely going to the chow hall. You don't like some of the meals. You have people prepare meals for you. You buy commissary, and it's going to cost you, let's say it costs you $800. So what you do is you just say, hey, Matt, can I put $400 on? Like you barely ever go to commissary. Do you mind? I'll put $400 on your books. You go to commissary and I'll buy you $50 worth of stuff. And what am I going to say? Yeah, what do I care? I barely ever go to, I buy coffee and creamer, at the most. Like that's it. Like, yeah, sure, no problem. So you don't mind doing those things. And I'm not. You also have to imagine that if you're some guy, you're a gang member. There's a whole bunch of gang members that are in there, and they say, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give your family $1,000, and we're going to put $400 on your books to help with your family. But you got to make sure this guy's okay. And by the way, pick 4 or 5 guys that you need. You're going to need their support to make sure this guy's got support. Absolutely. Put money on my buddy, this guy's book, this guy's book, this guy, all of them. You could put a couple $1,000s on my books.
Yeah.
It'll just sit there. I know guys that have over $100,000 on their books right now.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, I know guys that are like, they're older guys. They come to prison. They've got they got multiple sources of retirement funds. And then before they go to their money manager and say, hey, by the way, every month, this one, just put that on my books. What happens is they get to prison and they realize that I can only really spend maybe $100 on the phone and for core links, which is for your to be able to use the computer. So maybe I can spend $200 on that stuff and $400 at commissary. I can't spend more than $600 a month on everything I can buy. And you're putting $1,200 or $2,000 a month on my books. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. 5 years later, you're like, fuck, man, I got like $100,000 on my books. And you know what? The warden will call you in and they'll be like, look, what's going on? You got to get this off your books. And I know guys that have had arguments where they're like, I got nowhere to put it. Like, I know I'm not doing that. I mean, what are we,
Sure, let me out. Let me run down to the bank.
Hold on a second. Jess has a question. My wife has a question. Yes.
Okay. Do you think that the guys are going to treat him well and shower him with everything when he gets there, even though he has the charges that he has?
Okay. Yeah, but
for his
no, because here's the problem. Here's the thing. He's not being charged with, I don't want to say it again and again. We've already said, he's not forcing anybody to do anything.
He's just doing the trafficking side of it.
Right. Well, I understand what the indictment says. But here's the thing. You've got professional, you got professional people being flown in, committing acts. You've got so these guys are not going to think you're a bad guy. It's like to him, he's going to be like, wait, they're thinking, wait a minute. If this is some hot chick and I'm saying I can help your career, but I want to do some funky stuff to you, you could say no, leave. Like that's what these guys, the way they're thinking. They also know the way the government twists it. And so they is the tapes, these guys would probably actually, you have to think the individuals you're dealing with in there, they're sick. So taping some hot rapper chick doing some funky stuff and some female actress or some male actress, they'll actually think like, dang, bro, like yeah, man, that's yeah, boy, you got some shit on it. Like they're not going to think this is horrific. This is a horrible thing. These aren't guys that have high morals.
And you have to look at it from the aspect
No,
too. He
she's
comes in
saying,
there. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, she's saying he's not going to be treated like a show. Absolutely not.
No,
I'm telling you right now, absolutely not. And he's going to shower those guys with money. They're going to treat him like
that
gold.
was my thing. Is like when he comes in there, it's like, okay, could you make an example out of him and throw him a beating, or do you take advantage of this guy because you know he's your access to unlimited supply of money for you, your boys, your people on the outside, and you're going to keep him whole in there? So,
Absolutely.
which one is going to give you a greater benefit?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, these guys are not resting on their morals. Like they're not these
Now, if
guys
you
are,
come in there and you're broke, maybe you don't have nothing to
well,
offer.
if he was broke, they might push him around, talk some shit to him. There ain't nobody talking, saying nothing. That guy will be running the place. But you're still in prison. Like it sounds good, but you're still in prison. It still sucks.
Bad boy for life.
I don't know what that means, but
That's insane. You know, so do you even know any of this man's songs?
oh, I don't
None.
No.
Did you know who Biggie was?
Yes, because I painted a bunch of paintings of Biggie because
Okay,
I
well,
got
not
a
when
request.
you painted him. I'm talking about when the man was alive and singing.
No, I had no idea. No.
Oh,
I
okay.
did see the movie Colors. And when I saw the movie Colors, you don't know the movie Colors?
I know the movie Colors. I'm not sure where this fits into Biggie. Did he have a
Well,
song?
not him, but I'm saying rap. Like that's the
Oh,
first time I really kind of heard rap.
that's what Robert Duvall and Sean Penn, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then a bunch of black guys. And they were singing rap and stuff. And I remember, no colors, that whole thing. So I
That's
remember
Ice-T, I think.
who?
Ice-T sung Colors, I think.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, no, I know, and I know Ice-T because
Law and Order.
he was in Law and Order.
Still in Law and
And
Order.
I know Ice Cube because he was the one that was the F the police, right?
He was definitely F the police.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that was a big deal. It was a big deal when I was growing up. That was like that and Ellen DeGeneres kissing another woman on TV. Like what is like cats and dogs living together, bro? It was insanity. Like what's happening with the world? I
So
wish we could go back to Ellen DeGeneres making out. Like that's how insane this is.
So
Girls
you're,
were still
you're
girls and boys were still boys at least. I mean,
you're a very knowledgeable fella, but I
Thank you.
think I found where it comes a little short is the rap history. Here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't know everything. You have to,
Yeah.
you got to pick and choose what you want. It's like, do I know U.S. history, or do I go or rap songs and I went with World War II documentaries.
Yeah, you would be better for that than I. I'm gonna know the rap. Like, I mean, Tupac was great. Biggie was great. Those were two of the biggest names, and arguably, like when I was young, that kind of set the tone to where you realize that a lot of people take this a lot serious than music.
Mhm.
Because at the time that was two of the biggest and probably what I would consider the best rappers ever to both die because of if you want to look at it, according to this book, because of Diddy's extracurricular activities that allegedly set all this in motion. So I mean, it's sad. Both of those guys are very young and they probably could have had long careers. Like Tupac's still one of my favorites. Still play Tupac songs to this day.
I was listening to Garth Brooks the other day, Friends in Low Places. And I thought, it's a classic, but I know what you're saying. Like, you reach back for the classic. But nobody's writing anything about Garth Brooks, and he's still alive.
Oh, he's
There's not-
still alive. You got
not a
to
lot of-
die to get something written about you nowadays. You got to have a tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a lot of country singers end up, getting shot. And they shoot themselves a lot. Sometimes they're cleaning a gun, they'll lose a toe. All right, listen. We got to go. I got to go. We got to wrap this up.
You got to go.
Colby's
You got to get out of here.
edit this. Colby's going to edit this and try and get this out like tomorrow.
Yes. Diddy done.
Diddy done.
Diddy done. Matt Cox, it's a pleasure as always, my friend. Thank you for having me on the program.
All right.
Hawk Tua.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, leave me a comment. Also, please consider joining my Patreon. We have Patreon exclusive stuff on Patreon. It's $10 a month. Also, if you want to go to Wade's channel, we're going to leave the link to Wade's channel in the description. We're also going to leave the link to the book, which is called Kim's Lost Words, which is Kim Porter, and she is Diddy's baby mama that passed away, and it's a whole what is it, like a, what would you say, it was like a expose? No, it's a diary. It's a diary that kind of exposes a lot of interesting stuff and stuff that nobody knows about. It's on Amazon. We'll put the link there. You can click it, go there, buy the book, check it out. Really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much. See ya.